All right, today's video is about Navigate on Autopilot. In particular, version 10 of the software. We're going to talk about some things that are really good. We're going to talk about some things that are really bad. And I will have bookmarks in the description so you can jump to whatever interests you. So today we're going from Charlotte, North Carolina to Columbia, South Carolina. Took the family to the Riverbanks Zoo in Columbia, South Carolina today. And look, I mean, overall, the experience with Navigate on Autopilot, I would say, was favorable. I was very relaxed for 90% of the trip, but there's absolutely some things that still need to be worked on. So we're going to talk about those. I will highlight both the good and the bad. And as I said before, there will be links in the description so that you can jump to whatever you might be interested in seeing. So here we are merging onto 485 in Ballantine, in the Ballantine area. I say merging, but that's maybe a little bit generous. As you can see, we just continued into a lane right off the exit ramp, or right off the entrance ramp. So really no merge to speak of here. So everything here worked out just fine. Very smooth. A good thing is, as we went around the curve, a fairly sharp curve on the on-ramp, it's the autopilot slowed down and handled that turn very well, so that was nice and smooth. Everything here is nice and smooth, but really nothing more than just glorified autopilot at this point. All right, so here we come to our first interesting scenario. We've got some cars merging to the right, as you'll see here shortly. This is definitely one area where autopilot needs some improvement. It should be able to see that car right there, and it should have moved over. My wife, you couldn't see her, but she was basically hunkered down in the seat to my right, nervously waiting for that car. So here, really nice lane change. It sees a car in front of us that's going slower than us, so it changes with some authority. So that was great, but it needs to be able to sense cars that are getting ready to merge in. I mean, it knows that it's in the right lane. It knows based on the map data that there is an on-ramp coming. It should just go ahead and proactively move to the next lane over as soon as it can, so that you're not blocking other cars. It's just the human thing to do. I know it's thinking like a computer, and I've seen it slow down dramatically when cars are trying to merge in, but it's best just to go ahead and move over when you see another car coming to merge in. Okay, so here we're beginning to merge from 45 onto Interstate 77 South. And watch what happens when the car merges. So right there, see, it dramatically slows down. There's no good reason to do that. Matter of fact, it's quite dangerous. I think what happens there is a gap in the speed limit information as the two interstates connect. And the car doesn't know what to do, so it slows down, and that's pretty dangerous. So just another area. I mean, they've got to be able to smooth out these gaps and provide a little better experience. I'm not going to show you, but let's just say that the car merges just fine from the on-ramp on a 77. So everything from here on out goes very smoothly until we get into Columbia, South Carolina. And that's where we'll pick up shortly. Okay, here we find ourselves approaching our exit in Columbia, South Carolina, and easily our biggest fail of autopilot. it literally was just going to miss the exit. I had to take over and make the turn. I don't know what was going on. It knew we had to exit. You can see me right there. I just take over. It didn't even indicate that it needed to change lanes. I fully believe if I had left it to its own device, we would have just been cruising on down the interstate, completely missed our exit. I've never seen it do that before, certainly not on version 9. But clearly there, it was just going to absolutely blow right by our exit for no good reason. So that was very frustrating. I really don't know what to say about that. It was just a complete failure. Absolute failure. All right, so this is just to show Autopilot doing a very good job of ending Navigate on Autopilot and transitioning to traditional Autopilot. This is a bit of a unique ending, right, where the interstate just kind of ends into a normal residential road. That's Columbia, South Carolina for you, but it does a good job here of just seamlessly transitioning from a interstate to a normal road. So if we're looking for highlight reel, there's your highlight reel. Okay, so here, just as we exited the interstate coming into Columbia, we're now entering the interstate. So we're transitioning to Navigate on Autopilot. So Columbia is a little bit interesting. You get off of the interstate, you kind of go through an area of downtown, then you get back on the interstate. So a little bit odd, but hey, it is what it is. Shows a very good transition here. Just as it did a great job getting off the interstate, it does another good job getting on the interstate. And here you can see it transitioning lanes. So again, fantastic job exiting and both entering the interstate in Columbia, South Carolina. All right, so this is a really good example of Autopilot recognizing slower traffic well up ahead of us and going ahead and executing a nice smooth lane change. It recognizes slower vehicle well in advance of when I would have, and went ahead and changed lanes. And this is one area where Navigate on Autopilot really seems to excel. It does a very good job here. And while I'm at it, I would just note that once it decides to change lanes, it does so much more quickly in version 10 than it did in version 9. So that's a huge improvement. So well done there. This is definitely another highlight reel for Navigate on Autopilot. So we decided to hit the Columbia Supercharger on the way home. Didn't really need it, but figured we would check it out. And so here you can see the Supercharger is pretty boring situation. Yeah, we're going to give that lady a little bit of privacy. We're going to head back down to the left side of the charging bank here. But the Supercharger in Columbia is pretty boring. It's behind a Hilton Garden Inn. Not a whole lot going on. I suppose you could go in and grab a bite to eat. But really not much to do there. It's definitely one of the more boring Supercharger locations we've been to. So we sat there, played a little Netflix, played some beach buggy racing, and I don't know, added about 50 or so miles and then went on about our way. So here you can see us, we're getting ready to merge back onto I-77 North, and everything was going well, but I ended up having to take over here on the merge because the car literally just ran out of room, and it was doing okay, but it felt like it was going to suddenly jerk across the lane. So you can see me at the last minute right there. I take over, I just couldn't take it. It was probably okay, but again, it ran out of room. That's a fatal flaw that it seems to have. It waits till the very last second to merge into the interstate. So I just took over. A little bit frustrating. One of those scenarios they definitely need to get better at, because it happened to us again down the road, and I'll show you that shortly. All right, so here we are merging from I-77 back onto 485. The exact same scenario as we just saw. The car just waits and waits and waits. It never puts on the blinker. It literally runs out of lane right about here. It jerks us over to the left. They got to fix that. I mean, the car had plenty of time to merge. It just didn't. It let the lane run out. And that results in a fairly jerky experience if you're a passenger. My wife was completely hunkered down in the passenger seat and gripping on to the door handle tightly. It's a very unnerving experience. They got to find a way to make that better, because that is actually a pretty long merge lane. There's shorter ones around, and they got to fix that. So here you see a couple pretty good lane changes. It seems to work fine once you're on the interstate and once you're established. The lane changes are very smooth. It's very relaxing. It's really the merging behavior that they need to fix. And they need to fix that sooner rather than later, because it's a very frustrating experience. All right, let's talk a little bit about phantom braking. So here you're going to see, we're going to come up on an overpass. The car is going to put on the blinker. It's trying to turn around. You see right there, put on the blinker. It's going to turn around, and then boom, it goes from 75 down to 62. Let me tell you, that is a frightening experience when you're in the vehicle. They've got to solve that problem. It's unsafe. If there were somebody behind me, they could have rear-ended me. At a minimum, they would be highly pissed. They have got to solve that problem. I can only imagine that the shadow of the overpass caused that, but they got to solve it. Okay, so I'm officially out of driving footage, so now you're just going to all be subjected to random photos from the Columbia Riverbanks Zoo. So there you go. All right, so a couple wrap-up comments. Let's start with the good. So first, Navigate on Autopilot does very well once you're established on the interstate. In particular, if you were in any other lane other than the rightmost lane, so the second lane or the third lane, it performs beautifully. It can easily handle navigating in and out of traffic, getting around slower vehicles. Version 10 executes lane changes with authority, both getting around slow traffic and then getting back into the travel lane, getting out of the passing lane. So that is fantastic. So where does it struggle? It struggles in three main areas. Number one, it struggles merging onto the interstate. So as I showed, there were at least two examples where it literally just ran out of room, and then that ends up just jerking you onto the interstate as the lane ends. That's a very unnerving experience. The second area that it seems to struggle is dealing with traffic merging onto the interstate. In my opinion, it knows there's an on-ramp coming. It knows you're in the rightmost lane. Why not just move you over one lane? When you're coming up on a merging lane where it knows there's an on-ramp, just move over one lane. That shouldn't be too hard to figure out. But anyway, so those are two areas that it definitely struggles in. And the third area, phantom braking. I'm sorry, that shit has got to go. That will make a mess of people's underwear. I mean, you're just cruising along. Everything's great. Beautiful sky. You're just enjoying some good conversation with your wife or your spouse, whatever. Hell, just listening to some music. And then bam, out of nowhere, brakes like 15 miles an hour in 1 second. It's unnerving. It's horrible. That shit has got to go. I believe in my case, it was mostly from a shadow from an overpass. But that's insane. I mean, come on, guys. They got to fix that. So, look, I don't want to be overly negative. I mean, I'm showing you the highlights. I'm showing you the lowlights. But this was an hour-and-a-half trip both ways. 90% of it was great. Uneventful. I didn't show it to you because it was just boring, right? It's just interstate, trees passing, blah, blah, blah. Navigate on autopilot is really great. I mean, I arrive at my destination. I'm not very fatigued. It's fantastic. So to be clear, what I'm talking about here are scenarios that are in the fringes. They're either things that are really good or they're things that are really bad. But let's be very clear. 90% of your trip on Navigate on autopilot is going to be perfect or very close to it. That other 10%, it's either going to be really good or it's going to be really bad, and you may need some new underwear somewhere along the way. So just keep that in perspective. Overall, I'm very pleased. I'm still very bullish on the future of autopilot. I think Tesla's doing a fantastic job. I've seen market improvements in version 10 over version 9. However, Navigate on autopilot seems to still be lagging a little behind, and I'm very hopeful that they figure out ways to improve some of these things in the very near future. I hope you found this video very informative and helpful. If you did, please hit that subscribe button. Y'all have a good day.